Hey everyone. So today we're jumping into a really interesting book by Art Mathias called Biblical Foundations of Freedom. Now, this book lays out a framework for understanding those deep internal struggles we all have. And let me tell you, it's a fascinating and, for some, maybe even a controversial take. So yeah, let's just dive right in.
I mean, have you ever felt like this? It's that classic feeling, right? Like there's a full-on war happening inside your own head. You know exactly what you want to do, but you end up doing the complete opposite, the very thing you hate. The author uses this ancient quote to kick things off because it really frames the question that I think we've all asked ourselves at some point. Why? Why does this happen?
Okay, so here's where we get to the core argument of the book. The author says this internal conflict, it's not just psychological, it's not all in your head. The claim is that we are all, right now, caught smack in the middle of a constant, invisible, spiritual war. And according to the book, this verse right here is absolutely key. The idea is that our real battles, our real struggles, they're not with other people, not with our boss or our spouse or our neighbor, not with flesh and blood. The real fight is with these unseen spiritual forces. And if you think about it, that idea, it completely reframes how you look at every single conflict in your life.
So the book kind of paints this picture of two warring kingdoms. You've got God's kingdom on one side. Think love, joy, peace, all that good stuff. And then on the other side, you have Satan's kingdom, which is all about rejection, hatred, and fear. The central idea here is that these two kingdoms are in a constant tug of war for influence over our lives.
Okay, so if there's this big invisible war going on, you have to ask, right? How does the enemy get a foothold in the first place? Well, that question brings us to the author's really specific and honestly pretty radical definition of what sin actually is.
You know, most of us think of sin as just doing something bad, making a mistake. But the author challenges that whole idea. The book reframes it completely, saying it's not just a simple mistake. It's something much deeper, a kind of profound spiritual transaction.
And here it is. This is the big idea from the book. Sin isn't just about what you do, it's about what you allow. The definition here is that sin is choosing, and that could be a conscious choice or not, to let some external negative spirit manifest its nature through you. Think about it. Things like rage or deep-seated jealousy. The idea is you're letting that thing use you as a vehicle.
The book actually traces this all the way back to the very beginning, to the story of Adam and Eve in Genesis. And the argument it makes is pretty wild. Before they sinned, things like shame, fear, blame, they just didn't exist for humans. They weren't part of our original programming, if you will.
All right, so if these forces are locked in this constant war, where's the fight happening? Where's the actual battlefield? Well, according to the book, it's not somewhere out there in the world. The primary battlefield is your own mind.
Yeah, pretty much all of this wrestling, this entire spiritual war, it's all happening in our thought life. The author suggests that so many of those negative, accusing thoughts that pop into your head, you know the ones, those are the fiery darts from this invisible enemy. And their whole purpose is just to mess with you, to steal your peace.
And it's not random either. The book lays out a really specific three-pronged attack strategy. First, you get thoughts that make you doubt God. Then, you get thoughts that make you suspicious of other people. And finally, the knockout punch, thoughts that make you hate yourself. See the pattern? It's a strategy that's perfectly designed to isolate you, to make you feel completely alone.
So, okay, we've defined the problem, we've identified the battlefield. That's the what. Now the book shifts gears and gets into the how. How do we fight back? If we're really in a spiritual war, what are the weapons we're supposed to be using? And that's really the big tactical question, isn't it? How do you fight an enemy you can't see? The author's point is pretty clear. You can't fight a spiritual battle with physical weapons. Your strategy has to match the kind of fight you're in.
All right, so the book lays out a clear game plan, a real strategy for victory. First up, discernment. That just means learning to recognize where that negative, accusing thought is actually coming from. Step 2, take it captive. You actively choose to reject it. Now, this next one is huge. Separate the person from the sin. Remember, the battle isn't with flesh and blood. And finally, what the book calls the ultimate weapon, forgiveness. The idea is that forgiveness literally breaks the enemy's legal right or permission to stick around.
And to really drive this point home, the book tells this really striking story about a woman named Joan. The story goes that during a prayer session, a spirit of hatred literally speaks up and says, "No, I don't have to leave, I'm justified."
And why was it justified? Because of Joan's unforgiveness. It's a really powerful story that illustrates this idea that holding on to unforgiveness is like leaving the front door wide open for this stuff.
So, where does all this lead? What's the point of doing all this work? Well, the book frames it all as a path, a journey towards something we all want: genuine freedom.
And this is really the so what of it all, the payoff. The author argues this isn't just some abstract theological exercise. No, it's a practical path to real, tangible change in your life. We're talking about healing from really deep emotional wounds, actually restoring broken relationships, and finally breaking free from those destructive patterns you feel stuck in. It's about going from that state of constant internal warfare to a place of real, genuine peace.
And this verse right here is presented as the foundational promise for this entire framework. The message is really one of empowerment. It's saying that victory isn't just a long shot, it's not just possible, it's the whole point. It's about believers having the authority to actually win these spiritual battles.
And that, really, is where the book leaves us. It wraps up with a question that kind of challenges the very foundation of how we see ourselves, how we see our inner world. So I'll leave you with the same thought to chew on. What if those thoughts in your head are not always your own?